Bigfoot does not exist.
We're flying into a hole in the sky. There's nothing I can do to stop it. It's sucking us in. The limits of the third dimension must be transcended by negating the forces of duality and ascending into unity.
The Creepy and Weird Podcast, brought to you by Hippie Steve.
Welcome to Creepy and Weird. I am your host from coast to coast. I'm the new Space Ghost. Love that show. Miss it. R.I.P. Forget who just recently passed away. I think the guy did the voice for Space Ghost not too long ago. Maybe it was a year ago. I don't know. This year's flying by. Anyway, I am your host, Hippie Steve, and thank you for watching another episode of this podcast. Before I get into the subject at hand, I always like to go to, he's pretty much my co-host. He's the man behind the scenes, the man behind the curtain, old B-Mac on the attack. How you doing, B-Mac, huh? You got nothing to say? You down in the dumps? Probably because old Elon and Trump are cracking down on your brethren in Virginia. Not West Virginia. We're not going John Denver style here. John Denver was full of shit anyway. So we'll leave it at that. Anyway, so how y'all doing? We're going to cut, and B-Mac, I want to make sure that you understand this more than anybody because you're the practical jokester of this group. You're the funny one, as they say. We're going to cut the hot dogging and grandstanding to a bare minimum today because this is going to be a really deep, thick subject. Kind of feeling a little tingle in my loins talking about that. But anyway, yeah. This is, I want to keep these podcasts down to 30 minutes or under. We might go a little bit beyond 30 minutes for this one. We'll see. And before I begin, folks, let me know in the comment section what your preference is. Do you want to see these be 30 minutes and under podcasts? Do you want to see these be hour long? I hope not, but I'll try. But you want to see these be hour long podcasts? Probably have to start a Patreon at that point. Do you want to see these be like 15-minute long podcasts? I know I said 30-minute under, but I want to preference that. Like we did at the beginning, 15-minute long podcasts, or do you want me to be like Will Sasso and do 10-minute podcasts? Just throwing him out there. Maybe I'll bring Dudesy back and have an AI run this instead of you, B-Mac. Oh boy, we're going to be talking about AI in this one too. We'll get into that later though. So just let me know in the comment section though what you want to see as far as length. There's my tingle in the loins again, baby. But get your mind out of the gutter, B-Mac. All right, I don't want to hear it. But yeah, tell me, what's your preference? How much time do you have on your hands? And I'll try to accommodate. But anyway, this is going to be, as the title says, we're going to be talking about the Age of Aquarius. We're going to be talking about, not necessarily the positives. I'll talk about that. Kind of see what I mean by that in a bit. But we're also going to talk about the negatives as well. So let's get into it. And as always, my trusty notes, never leave home without them, folks. So, as I said, and as you know by clicking on this video, we're going to be talking about the Age of Aquarius. blah, 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 blah. Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather. All right, I got it. Good to go. Quit laughing, B-Mac. No hot dog and grandstanding today, brother. You're getting me all flustered. Whatever. So, the Age of Aquarius, B-Mac, is probably something you've heard a lot about lately. You know, seeing it on social media, people talking about it, you know, probably don't know much about it, but they still talk about it anyway. Hell, I probably don't know much about it, but, you know, I definitely did my research for this. I tried doing this podcast a couple months ago, and it just didn't work out. And, yeah, you know, so I'm trying this again, and I'm feeling really confident, man. I'm feeling pumped about this. Not just pumped because this is thick. It's got dumps like a truck. I got that tingle in my loins. Watch it. Anyway, so, you know, we're going to time out here. I'm going to focus, all right? Focus. And, yeah, so the Age of Aquarius, you know, kind of a, you know, broad stroke of what, you know, the Age of Aquarius is, you know, we'll be talking about this too, what the Age of Pisces is, and any of these different ages are. What it generally is, you know, these aren't simple subjects by any stretch of the imagination. But, you know, generally speaking, planet Earth's position in this cosmos, and since me and BMAC are the baddest mofos in this cosmos, we're going to talk about this. I'm so sorry, BMAC, all right? I'm blaming myself for that one. But yeah, planet Earth's position in this universe is believed by a decent number of people to have an effect on all sorts of happenings on this planet, which have been going on longer than we could even fathom. I could go over these, you know, possible effects, but, you know, honestly, that would be a whole episode, you know, probably a multi-part episode. I mean, there's just so much you could talk about on that. It's crazy. You know, I really do believe with almost 100% certainty that, you know, we definitely, where we are in position of planets and stars and galaxies and probably even multiverses, have all sorts of effects on us. You know, and of course, you know, you have your rational, hard-nosed assholes, skeptics, who want to act like galactic alignments have nothing to do with the happenings on this planet. You know, pay no attention to what the moon does to bodies of water. You know, notice the tides and all that. That's the moon doing that. And, you know, I'm no gynecologist, but I'm pretty sure the human body has approximately a lot of water. You know, and that's not even counting the squirters. Hell, man. Imagine what those poor souls have to go through. But God bless them, right, B-Mac? And of course, I'm talking about squirters like squirt guns, super soakers, and drinking squirt. Get your mind out of the gutter, B-Mac. Get your hands out of your pants, you pervert. All right? Focus. Hot dog and grandstanding to a minimum. But, yeah. So, with B-Mac's perversions out of the way, let's go into... Really, we're at Age of Aquarius right now. We'll get more into that too. But the last 2,000 years of our position in this, universe has been what is known as the Age of Pisces. And while it's debated whether we have exited Pisces and have entered Aquarius, it does seem like we're at a point where everybody that believes in this sort of thing is agreeing that, we have finally entered the age of what's called the Age of Aquarius. Age of Aquarius is upon us, brother. Our sisters. And yeah, where was I getting at here? I wanted to say something before I went back into my notes, and I just kind of lost my train of thought. It's B-Mac's perverted ways that are distracting me, because he still hasn't gotten his hands out of his pants. I'm not going to say it, B-Mac, but just to a minimum, all right? To a minimum, brother. All right? It's okay. It's okay. Shh. I know you're, your brothers with that acronym, the C, the I to the A. They're upset, but it's okay. This too shall pass, to a minimum. But, so it's debated as far as whether we, have entered, the Age of Aquarius, but I think everybody's now agreeing that we have. And, doing research on this, it's funny because, I see people that are now finally agreeing, yes, we are in the Age of Aquarius. I see people that say that we entered the Age of Aquarius in 2011. I'm not sure what the significance was there. I personally believe that we've been in the Age of Aquarius probably since about the mid 20th century. I think when we dropped those 2 A-bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that was us using technology to its umpteenth degree. And really not much else I could say about that. That was... I don't know what your thoughts are on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I wasn't a fan. Leave in the comments section, folks. Do you think Hiroshima and Nagasaki were a good thing? You racist twats. Am I allowed to say twats? I think I am. But anyway. So, yeah. Regardless of when the Age of Aquarius started, we could all finally now agree pretty much that we are in the Age of Aquarius. And here's the 2,000-year question. Is it a good thing or a bad thing that we are under the watchful care of the water bearer? I mean, as fishy as the Age of Pisces was, pun intended, there were wonderful feats of art, innovation, and philosophy which came about during this time. I'll say this again. I've said this before. Everything casts a shadow. Everything has light. Everything has darkness. Positive and negative. What does our mother electricity teach us? You cannot have a positive without a negative. So, yes, everything has that. And so the Age of Pisces definitely had its positive and negatives. A lot of people like to focus on negatives, but there was plenty of positives as well. And with the Age of Aquarius, like I said, I'm going to go a little bit into the positives, but I just think there's a lot of negatives here, man. We'll get in that though, for sure. And with all that said, what does the Age of Aquarius have in store for us? So, yeah. I don't know. So I did research to find out. So, yeah, like I said, I mean, you've probably been hearing a lot of stuff about the Age of Aquarius. And I'm no betting man, but I'm pretty sure the info you're getting about the Age of Aquarius is complete trash. And I know this because, like I said, I did a ton of research on this. And like 90% of the info I was getting was like empty-headed, and obvious observations, which had one common denominator about them that I didn't agree with. It was all positive. There was no negativity discussed. And yes, I mean, I'm not saying be a negative a-hole, but you can't just, be all positive about stuff, all right? You gotta look at the negative too. And you can't just be all negative about something. You have to put some positivity in there. Balance your asses, all right? That's all I'm saying. So here's some gems I found while doing the most basic of garden variety research. So here's what they say. I'm not even sure where I got this information from. Probably like The View or like the Drew Barrymore show. Does she still do a show where she like cries every time she like interviews somebody? I probably didn't get it from there, but I could have. I'm not sure. But, here's information I got from somewhere. I don't know where. So, here's what Drew Barrymore and Company, tell you about what the Age of Aquarius, what the characteristics are. They say it's a time of change, inspiration, and ideas. Sounds like something you'd see on a Hallmark card, for crying out loud. Come on. All right. It's a time when people seek new ways to understand themselves, the world, and life. Sounds like a movie I watched one time. Can't really give you the details about that because, it was a dirty movie. So, the less said about that, the better. Hot dog and Grand Sandy to the side, B-Mac, to the side. It's a time when people move from a me to we consciousness. I don't see that being a characteristic right now, but maybe that's just me. It's a time when people tune into nature's rhythms and allow their creative consciousness to flow. Don't pay any attention to what the Taoists, the Buddhists, and hell, even the Hindus have been doing for the last 2,000 years or so. You know, where they literally have been doing that. But apparently that's characteristics of what we're living at right now. Not then. Those people were barbaric. They're animals. Animals! Oh, alright. So that was the characteristics of what they say about the Age of Aquarius. And this is what they, with a capital T, say is going to happen during the Age of Aquarius. Social, technological, and cultural changes are expected. People may seek new ways to understand themselves and the world and life. Is that written twice? Did the place I get this from actually write that twice, or was that me? I don't know. Wouldn't it shock me one bit if they wrote this twice, because apparently they love that movie. You know, I loved it too. Great memories back in 2011. People may seek new ways to live together in peace and equality. I thought equality was out. I mean, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, B-Mac, but I thought equality was out. I thought it was all about like equity now. I thought equity was something like you did like in a 401k or something like that. But yeah, you know, it's all about equality now, not equity. I can't keep up with these buzzwords. It's driving me mad. Anyway, last and certainly least, this is all least, people may seek new ways to organize, relate, and be. And like I said, this is just garden variety. This is Olive Garden level stuff here, man. Yeah. Just, That's all I gotta say about that. You know, and like, you know, it's just really positive and really fluffy, like a cloud. You can lay on it and go to bed. It doesn't keep you up at night. But sometimes you gotta be kept up at night. So when you're looking at these weird subjects that are creepy, you understand them better. You know, you can't just sleep all the time. You know, you need a little negativity in your life. You know, don't get me wrong. You know, I'm all about looking at the glass half full rather than half empty. But as I said, everything casts a shadow. Everything has a negative along with a positive. I can't hammer that home enough. So all this stuff I got about the Age of Aquarius, yeah, I mean, no negative whatsoever. You know, and it's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a negative Nilly, but, you know, I don't know. I really don't. You know, Hallmark card level stuff. That's all I can say. So anyway, so the place where I got the richest information about the Age of Aquarius is from a book called Aeon. And the person who authored this book is none other than good old Carl Jung. You know, God, I'm going to probably, have to, make this the Carl Jung channel, because I've been talking about this guy so much. But if you're new to this channel and haven't been hearing me yap about him for so long, he was a famous Swiss psychologist who is also a person who's had a great influence on me. So there you go. And yeah, I mean, all this talking I have about Carl Jung is because he's had such a great influence on me. I reference Jung quite a bit. And, but I assure you, I already have my next episode pretty much mapped out. And I probably only bring up Jung like a few times. He's not a dominant force in our next episode. Another person will be, but more on that next week. But yeah, this is the Carl Jung channel by any stretch of imagination, but he's going to dominate this along with another person I talked about in our last podcast, but let's get in that in a bit. So, Jung's book, Aeon, goes into all sorts of subjects, but at the heart of the book, it's about the era we find ourselves in. And what era is that, B-Mac? No, not the Attitude Era, you poop-hunt Mark. Jesus. Sorry. he's not getting the message. I'm not going to say it to him anymore. But the era we're in is, of course, the age of Aquarius. I think. So let's get more into all this. Where the heck am I in life? What am I doing? Who am I? Where am I going? I don't know. But I'm just killing time. That's all. We're making good time here. Let me check and see just to make sure. 1933. That's not included in our entrance video, but that doesn't count. That's his doing, not me. Okay? I'm all about this. The entrance video is a banger, by the way. But now I lost my place again. I'm trying to praise you over here, B-Mac. But, keep it to a minimum, okay? Please. We got kids in the audience, I think. Yeah. So really what I'm doing is killing time. But anyway. So here's Carl Jung's theory on the Age of Aquarius. And before I get into all this, I want to make sure people understand that when Jung's talking about the Age of Aquarius, he's essentially talking about an age, he was either in the entrance stages of or not in at all. If you go by my theory that this started like in the 1940s, then he was in it for a decade or so. But, even if that's the case, he wouldn't have experienced the technological levels that we see now. When Jung died in the early 60s, the biggest piece of technology that was available, keep in mind, was a black and white television. Now compare a black and white television just simply to a TV that we have now. Think about how much people in the 60s would freak out. Not just on the good old SID, but on the TVs that we watch, that we take for granted. And that's not even counting our iPads, our smartphones, our computers, any of that. I mean, none of this stuff was even fathomable back when Jung died. So when he's talking about this stuff, he's really looking into something that he can't quite grasp. And I think that does come through in this. And a lot of people that have read Aeon don't really get it. And I think that's part of the reason why they don't get it, is because, not trying to say Jung didn't know what he's talking about. It's just you can't articulate something when it's in the future. What was it? Arthur C. Clarke said in one of his principles, I think it was Clarke's third law, any technology, any highly advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I think I quoted that verbatim, by the way. And that's one of the truest quotes, one of the truest rules I've ever heard in my life. So that and like the first rule of Fight Club, but that's, he's making me do that. B-Mac, not Arthur C. Clarke. He's no longer with us. But anyway, yeah, so just keep that in mind when I'm going over this. But yeah, I'm going to get into AI too. We'll get into that a little bit later. But just think about AI. Could people even fathom? I know that there were sci-fi books that were written in the probably as early as the 40s, maybe even the 1800s, late 1800s, that could sort of encapsulate what AI is, but nobody could fathom. I was just watching the thing today where Aaron Rodgers, they made Aaron Rodgers look like he was making a speech as Ric Flair in the middle of a wrestling ring. And, it sort of looked a little funky, but it looked real enough to where it's like, this is technology. It's kind of stupid technology. It's entertaining nonetheless, but whatever. But yeah, people couldn't even fathom that. So yeah, I just needed to throw it out there because that Aaron Rodgers thing was, it was a banger. It was stupid, but it was a banger. But yeah, with Jung, something to understand with the book Aeon is, when I talk about light and shadow, this is all Jungian philosophy. And so with Jung, he talks about the shadow of Christianity, the shadow of the Age of Pisces. But he also talks about the potentiality of the shadow of the Age of Aquarius, something that he would really never experience. So, take that for what you will. And making sure I'm not forgetting anything here. So, really with the Age of Aquarius, what we're looking at here is this quick boom in technology and science. Excuse me. And going back to the black and white TV, do any of you even know what a black and white TV even looks like? Believe it or not, I actually had one when I was a kid. And they're pretty funky, man. I think it was made by like Montgomery Ward. That place doesn't even exist anymore. And that sudden jump of technology, going from that to what we have now, is just, it's almost incomprehensible. And so this was something that Jung actually really hit the nail on the head with, is that this sudden increase in technology was going to lead to a spiritually deficient age, which was going to be kind of a symbol of the arrival of the Antichrist. Now, when you're hearing words like, with Jung about the Antichrist and Jesus, keep in mind that he's only talking about these in terms of symbols. He's not talking about literal figures here. When he talks about Jesus, we'll get into that as far as what the symbol of Jesus is. But when he's talking about the Antichrist, I don't think he really understands what he means by Antichrist. I'm going to try to encapsulate that towards the end. But yeah, he does use the word Antichrist and says that this is going to be the arrival of Antichrist. And like I said, he doesn't really mean, a literal Antichrist. At least not in the terms that people would think of. Not some evil person that has 666 written on their forehead. But yeah, so just keep that in mind. Everything with Jung, when he talks about Jesus or anything religious, he's talking about it in symbols. He's not actually talking about this literally. And before I get more into this, I know we're getting more into the minutes here. 1 second, sorry. Not grabbing BMAC. Don't worry about that. Sorry, just had to have a little drink of water, little drinky poo bud. I'll put that over there so you don't have to see me do the gangster lean too much. Sorry, I think I got out of the microphone room too much there too. God, I'm getting off base. But I think we're pretty much towards the end of this anyway, so we're making great time. So to better understand the Jungian view, Carl Jung's view on the Age of Aquarius, we also need to understand the Jungian view on the age that preceded, I think that's the right word, the age that came before the Age of Aquarius, which is the Age of Pisces. And the Age of Pisces is associated with the figure of Christ, Jesus Christ. And in Jungian psychology, Christ is considered to be the symbol. Not just the symbol, not like Prince, but the symbol of man. So Christ is considered to be the symbol of man in Jungian psychology. And so keep that in mind. This is not literal Jesus Christ we're talking about here. We're talking about just a figurative thing, sort of a mythos, if you will, a mythical figure. It's debated whether Jesus ever existed or not, but that doesn't matter, because the story of Jesus has a dominant way of our thinking for the last 2,000 years, which is why that's the Age of Pisces. Pisces being fish equaling Jesus for some reason. I don't know. You see those little fish symbols on the back of Ned Flanders' car. They're Christians, and I believe the disciples of Jesus might have been fishermen or something like that. I might be completely wrong. I'm no Bible historian by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that's where the whole fish symbol comes from. I'm not sure. Maybe Jesus was a big fish with a PH fan. I don't know. I'm more of a Grateful Dead fan myself, but that's just me. Good old Jerry. And so anyway, the last 2,000 years, Age of Pisces, Age of Christ, Age of Man. Age of Aquarius, like I said, is associated with a rapid rise in technology and science. And with this is gonna, and this isn't debatable. We see this. Along with this rapid rise in technology and science, we see a general disdain towards anything deemed religious or spiritual. I'm sorry, but I don't think you could debate that. It's just, how many people have we known over the years that just proudly proclaim themselves to be atheists? I'm not going to get into the whole atheist thing. I don't know. But this general disdain towards anything deemed religious and spiritual that has been predominant in our society for decades now, this really rings home a person I talked in my last podcast, old Uncle Friedrich Nietzsche, when he said, God is dead. Now, God is dead is probably one of the most misquoted and misunderstood things that Nietzsche has ever said, because people think that he meant God is dead in a positive way. Hey, God is dead. Yay, everybody. But he didn't mean it that way. He meant it in a negative way. It was a negative statement. God is dead was actually a warning against nihilism. And both Nietzsche and Jung felt that the rise in science and technology would not only lead to a rapid increase in nihilism, but would also lead to a rapid increase in authoritative governments. And if you're not seeing this connection, you're not seeing this come into fruition right now with nihilism and authoritative governments, I'm sorry, you're just not paying attention. I've been on this planet now for 38 years, and I can honestly say people are as depressed as I ever seen them, and our government is as messed up as I've ever seen it. I don't think the orange guy and the fraud that claims that he founded Tesla are going to solve a damn thing. That's all I'm going to say about that subject. I'm with you on that one, BMAC. Not on your side with the acronym of the C, the I to the A. But anyway. So going back to the concept of the Antichrist. And this is really where we're going to end the subject right now. And God, I think we're making great timing. A little bit over 31 minutes. So yeah, I predicted it, that this was going to be a little bit over 30-minute video. We're almost done, I assure you. You can go back to, watching the Y-Files, watching his podcast. That he's beating me on stuff now, man. He made a freaking podcast about Aleister Crowley, for crying out loud. What are you doing, AJ? Come on, man. Leave some for the rest of us, brother. All right? Guy talks to a fish anyway. I talk to BMAC. But, so with the concept of Antichrist, really where I'm going to try to tie this into, so let's go back to the Age of Pisces. So if the Age of Pisces is indeed the age of man, Christ equals man. So Christ, age of, Pisces, fish equals Christ. All these things are tied up. So age of Christ, age of man. So if the Age of Pisces is indeed the age of man, then that means that the age of Aquarius has to be the age of non-man. And what is a very intelligent thing in our lives right now that's also not human? BMAC? Pop quiz? Can you think of anything? Not a cockatoo, BMAC. My God, man, you get a dunce cap for the day, man. So, I'll answer it. What is something that's very intelligent, also not human? Artificial intelligence, AI. And I'm not talking about Allen Iverson. I'm talking about artificial intelligence. Like that movie with the kid from The Sixth Sense. It's actually a pretty good movie. But, yeah, however you feel about AI, artificial intelligence, I'm going to do a separate episode about that. I have a lot of positivity that I do feel about AI. I think there's going to be a lot of positivity that comes out of that. But yet again, let's go back to, with the positive comes the negative. And I think there's going to be a lot of negative that also comes with AI as well. Artificial intelligence, not Allen Iverson. And yeah, AI or anti-man or anti-Christ, anti-fish. I don't know. Maybe AI is a dead fan as well. A deadhead. But yeah. So, pretty much to sum this up, are you ready for the age of non-man? Well, ready or not, here it comes. So, I really do hope that this technology thing and AI and all this stuff works out for us for the best. And I don't want to sound too, Unabomber on this. I'm not anti-technology. I'm not anti-science. There's been great things that happen because of these things. But we need to have a spiritual side to us as well. We can't forget the spiritual. And I don't have the direct quote from Nietzsche, but Nietzsche pretty much said something along the lines of, we need to have two brains, one for science and one for spiritual. And we need to have these two brains be equal. And that's how you become a more optimum person. Perhaps even the Ubermensch or Overman. I don't know. But, yeah. So don't think that I'm trying to be too anti-science or anti-technology here, because I'm not. But we need to connect with the spiritual as well. I'm sorry to say we're doomed. We're doomed. Okay? So, yeah. I don't know what else to say. I just don't see a bright future for us as humans, at least on this physical plane. So if I could leave you with any positivity with this, all I could say is be like Christ, be like the Buddha, be like the Taoists, be like the shamans. Find your inner kingdom, okay? The kingdom of heaven is inside you. The key to spirituality is inside you. It's not out there. It's not on the iPhone. It's not with AI. It's with you. Find your way. And if you find your way, I promise you, you won't be sad and depressed and anxious anymore. And maybe you will. I don't know. Don't come yelling at me. But it's worked for me, and I think it'll work for you as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, we're getting closer to a 40-minute long podcast, which I didn't want to do, but too much hot dogging and grandstanding from BMAC. So that's it, though. That's, unless lightning strikes me dead, I will be doing a podcast next week. And yeah, just please support our small channel. We need all the help we could get. Like, subscribe, share this video, pass the message along, leave a comment. Those always help. And yeah, just support Creepy and Weird. We're going to try our damnedest to get the best content out that possible with what we have. So love us for who we are. And that's all I got to say about that. So until next time, folks, embrace the absurd and free your mind, and your ass will follow. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.